give me ice cold, yeah.
Hi, my lovelies. So excited, so excited. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad to have you back for another Friday Night Bookish Lyme and another Friday Night Bookish Lyme Buddy Read. I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to read the book. And if you haven't, then, you know, not to worry, that's also okay. I'm pretty sure that our conversation will not spoil that reading experience for you. Before we get into our buddy read chat today, and we have the chance to speak with Myriam Chancy today, I'm so glad that she has taken the time to pop in with us. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've been up to. So this week, I went through What Storm, What Thunder. So much to offload where this book is concerned, so much to discuss. And I also started a buddy read with Jess and Nakeeta and a few others, reading this one, The House in the Cerulean Sea. It is such a charming novel. I am enjoying every moment of it, and work has been kicking my bam bam all week, all month. So reading has been a bit of a challenge for me. But after tonight, I'm definitely looking forward to cozying up with this for the rest of the weekend. I finished before this Wahala with Lala, and for those of you who have read Wahala, I really want to have a conversation with you about that book, because that book is just Lifetime Movie Network craziness. Like, I don't know how people are in the streets telling an absolute stranger their personal business and not telling their friends. And then I won't say any more because I don't want to spoil the essence of the book. But I definitely will say that that book, I can however appreciate how realistic some of the behavioral patterns and characteristics of that book were. And it's a character-driven book. It doesn't have a very strong plot, if you want to, per se. So if you're not somebody who is into character-driven literary works, this one might not do it for you. But it's definitely one of those Bookstagram made me do it books, not for me. I was gifted the book, so I read it. But I'd have to say that it's definitely all over Instagram, all over Bookstagram. It's what everybody is reading right now. I think it's safe to say Black Cake, Wahala, and Yinka, Where Is Your Husband? Nobody's Magic, and there is one more book that has been killing Instagram. But those are the books right now that everybody's reading. And speaking of Yinka, Where Is Your Husband? Just a quick reminder that we will be discussing Yinka, Where Is Your Husband? Next month. So you can order the book. I believe it's going to be an add-on again for Book of the Month in this upcoming month. So if you haven't already gotten the book, you know from now to get this book for our next buddy read. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also reading after House in the Cerulean Sea. I'm going to jump right into Within These Wicked Walls, which is a sort of Jane Eyre retelling. And I've really taken to reading Jane Eyre retelling simply because Jane Eyre was one of my favorite classics until I read White Sargasso Sea. by Jean Reese. And if you know me or if you follow me, you will know that I have exhausted the heck out of that book. I think I talk about White Sargasso Sea at any waking moment that I have the opportunity to, because it is for me one of the best books I've ever written. I love a good retelling. And as a Caribbean woman, I really appreciated how the Caribbean wife of Mr. Rochester, who is given very, very little identity in Jane Eyre, is given an opportunity to become a person, because she's really not seen as in a positive light at all, and we don't get much information about her. We just hear that she's the mad Creole woman who lives in the attic who them lock away. So, you know, White Sargasso Sea, Jean Reese has given the mad Creole woman, Mrs. Rochester, a chance to become a person, to be a wholesome figure. And she did an excellent job in giving back context and creating a whole perception of what could have caused her to be pushed to this level of madness. And it moves from the Caribbean all the way back to the UK, where she descends into this mad state, and it just shows the interactions between her and Rochester. It's so fair. It's so, you know, it gives each character a chance to show why they are the way they are in Jane Eyre. And the good thing about it too is that you don't even have to have that Jane Eyre knowledge to really read White Sargasso Sea and to have an appreciation of it. So I'm really, I pretty much just spoke to you guys all about White Sargasso Sea. So I'm looking forward to reading this one because it's paranormal fiction, and I want to see how well Lauren Blackwood does justice to this retelling. It was Reese's book club YA pick. So let's see how that, you know, adds up. I'm just excited to be here with you guys again. I'm so anxious to hear what you guys have been up to since we last came together. Trisha says, I've been reading Accra Noir, and Trisha also just finished reading a book called Carolina Built. So I want to get my hands on that. Renee just finished reading Death Register. And Renee, that's the book that you guys are doing for the Bookstassy book club. Second, I'm reading What Storm at Thunder Still. And then Olga, we are reading Olga together. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Currently reading Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. Oh my gosh. So I've been seeing that book and I don't know why, but the title alone has really gotten me interested and intrigued, and I want to read it. So I will wait to see what you have to say about it, but I want to read it too. Tanya, I'm reading Finlay Donovan Knocks Him Dead. I read that. I am so behind on reviews. As you know, I'm now a contributor for The Gleaner, and that has also taken up a lot of the time that I would have been doing reviews. And also, if you don't get the right pick for the gram, you know, you can't, you need to get the right pick to do the reviews. But Finlay Donovan Knocks Him Dead was a little bit disappointing for me, especially because of how much I loved Finlay Donovan is killing them. Anyways, yes, I'm Jamaican, so is killing them. Yeah, I loved Finlay Donovan is killing them so much. It was hilarious, along with the little mystery. A lot of things were just not plausible. And I loved that. Like, I loved the fact that a lot of it was just not plausible, and that was fine. But I felt like it lacked a lot of the humor that we got in the first book, and that took away from the ridicule of what they were doing. It almost made it now more of a serious mystery, and then a lot of things just didn't make sense. So then you're like, yeah, but this this really doesn't make sense. Before it didn't make sense, but we knew clearly it wasn't supposed to, you know? So especially if you take that book up on its own and you haven't read the first Finlay Donovan, I would be curious to know what someone would think of the book, having not read the first. Nakeeta finished Black Cake and she's still recovering. She did put up a review this week, so you can check out her page for that. Tanya said, all the men in Lagos are mad is good. So I'm on a book ban, so I don't know when I'm gonna get my hands on that, but I'm definitely putting that on books that I would like to read. Christine reading Love After Love and Beneath the Lion's Gaze. Love After Love. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that. One of the best books I've read in recent times. There were a few things that I felt were a bit abrasive, but it was funny. And as a matter of fact, I was liking it so much that I found myself listening to the audiobook, and my lady Gigi and I were spending a lot of the time on the road, and I would play the audiobook. And because she lived in Trinidad for a while I was younger, she was so into it that like we'd get home and she'd be like, we're in the kitchen and she's cooking and she's like, can you play the audiobook? So I do not have Kindle Unlimited, but I will see what it's costing in the Kindle department. Kenzie just finished Raceless, starting the Book of Lost Names. I want to read the Book of Lost Names. Okay, I want to read a lot of books, but I really want to read, I think I said that all the time. I'm like, no, but I really want to read this book, but I really want to read all the books, but I really want to read the Book of Lost Names, just from the title, especially since The Midnight Library was so disappointing for me. I felt like that book had so much promise, and the premise of the book was so unique, and I was really hoping that I would fall in love with that book, and I fell, but not in love, unfortunately.
Hello. I'm not hearing you correctly. Let me just, can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly. Can everyone hear?
I can now. I couldn't hear you for a minute.
Hi, Mir. Wow, you're like fully matching your book.
What, and how so?
Because the colors, the blue, the yellow, you know, the hints of green.
I didn't plan on it, but I just realized.
Wow. Can you just hold that, please? Renee, can we just get a screenshot of that? Yeah, we need to get that. Myriam is fully decked out in What Storm, What Thunder gear.
And this is actually a scarf from Haiti, from an artist. They're called Artistes Femmes Matenois, but are the women artists of Matenois. I can put it in the chat if anybody's interested.
Yes, hearing you speak French just now just jolted in me an excitement to have to hear you read, guys. So you know, normally I read an excerpt from the book, a part that I like that really stood out to me. The last author that we had was Celeste Mohammed, author of Pleasant View, and I allowed her to read because she has such a great voice. And tonight I've asked Miss Chancy, is that the correct pronunciation of the surname?
You're doing very well. It is Chancy.
Chancy, I thank you, because you see, je m'appelle Shanique, and
yeah, your name in French would be Shanique.
My entire name is actually French. My name is Shanique Jeanette Marie Sinclair, and all
that's right.
Shanique Jeanette.
Shanique Jeanette Marie
Sinclair.
There you go.
Technically, you know,
we're all kin.
So Myriam, thank you so much for coming and agreeing to this chat with us, the Fairy Gang and myself.
Happy to be here.
You're hearing me?
I said I'm happy to be here.
Oh, okay, yes. We are excited. And I just, before we really get into it, I just want to highlight Trisha up top there. I was just telling everyone you did an awesome interview with her for her.
That's right. Hi, Trisha.
Yes, so
I actually haven't seen her in person.
well, there she is. Are we able to bring her up? There she is, Trisha. You have a moment.
Hi, Trisha.
Hi, Miss Chancy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very well.
We are, Shanique and I are always chatting very, she will wake me up in the morning at 8 o'clock with voice messages, and we get into these long conversations. We had a very long conversation about you like an hour before all of this. So we are very excited to have you here.
I am. So as Trisha said, we had a long conversation where I basically dissected the book. And now that you are here, I'm like, Lord, I'm hoping that I will be able to articulate myself and really get down into the questions that I want to ask you. But before I do that, and before I introduce you to everyone, I just wanted to let everybody know what an enjoyable experience it has been communicating with you and organizing for you to be here. You are one of the authors that it has been an immense pleasure.
Thank you.
To deal with. You are so personable. You are so sweet, so accommodating. Thank you so much for agreeing to do the giveaway. I'm not sure if Nakeeta is here. I saw her come on. I'm not sure if she's still on. But she received the book, a signed copy. How gracious of you. And you've also agreed to not only come in and speak with us tonight, but to also come back on April 1 for the author chat where we put you in the hot seat. As I tell people every time,
what happened?
It's not Scotch bonnet pepper hot, but
I couldn't survive that.
We will ask you a few questions, and we will ask you a very particular question that I will not mention at this moment, but the entire Fairy Gang knows exactly what that question will be, and I can't wait to see what your answer will be to that very particular question.
Okay.
So before you read to us, and
how long do you want me to read for? I could read a page, 2 pages, 2.5.
You could read, because the story that I've asked you to read,
I'm going to read from Sarah.
Yes, she's the character that really left an emotional, the entire book left an emotional mark on me, but she is the character that I felt so deeply for. And so it was very imperative that you read from her. I would say maybe 3 pages.
Okay, I have a perfect selection for you.
Awesome. Myriam J.A. Chancy is a Guggenheim Fellow and HBA Chair of the Humanities at Scripps College. She is the author of What Storm, What Thunder, a novel on the 2010 Haiti earthquake, which has been named a Best Book of Fall by Time, The Washington Post, BuzzFeed, The Chicago Tribune, Vulture, Good Housekeeping, Boston.com, Parade, Thrillist, LitHub, and Harper's Bazaar, among many others. It was shortlisted in the fiction category of the Golden Poppy Awards and is, let's cross out long-listed, shortlisted for the Aspen Words Literary Prize. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We are praying for your victory. But even if you do not win, which we are just going to say that you're going to win, but even if it doesn't happen, I mean, this is a major achievement.
It is.
To be upgraded, or not upgraded because I don't want to use that word.
It's a great group.
To be moved from the long list to be shortlisted is fantastic.
It's
and
wonderful.
We couldn't be prouder.
Thank you.
Her past novels include The Loneliness of Angels, winner of the 2011 Ghana Prize in Literature Caribbean Award for Best Fiction 2010, The Scorpion's Claw, and Spirit of Haiti, shortlisted in the Best First Book category, Canada/Caribbean region of the Commonwealth Prize 2004. She has authored several academic books, including Framing Silence, Revolutionary Novels by Haitian Women. She served as an editorial advisory board member for PMLA from 2010 to 2012, as a humanities advisor for the Fetzer Institute from 2011 to 2013, and as a 2018 advisor for the John S. Guggenheim Memorial Foundation. Let's not waste any more time and hand it over to our special guest for tonight, Ms. Myriam J.A. Chancy.
Thank you so much for having me and for that wonderful welcome. I'm just going to, everybody knows the novel, I would assume, so I don't need to tell you what it's about. I'm just going to dive into Sarah. And if you're following in your book, I'm going to read from page 19 to 21. When the tugging started on her right elbow, as she slept folded in on herself as she used to sleep, that image of all of them growing old together had begun to fade. She had begun to forget what each of them looked like. Not because dues had happened so long ago, was it now only a few months ago, 6 months ago? It seems so much longer, but because the shock of their sudden disappearance had broken something in her mind, that part that was able to take things in and let them go, that wanted for little more than she had. The violence of this loss was like nothing she had ever experienced before, not like her parents' departures or her grandmother waving goodbye to her as she climbed into the back of her aunt and uncle's four-wheel drive, where she sat between two of the cousins, their sweaty thighs touching stickily together in the heat, forming an unexpected bond in place of the tearing away from all that she had held dear and familiar. The morning of the event, she remembered. They were there, eating breakfast, fighting over something that would soon be forgotten. They went off to school, hair combed or plaited, looking smart in their school clothes. They came home from school, washed up, changed into play clothes, did their homework, then asked for permission to go play with their friends as they waited for Olivier to return home and sit down to dinner. She'd said yes, as she almost always did. Why had she said yes? Why hadn't she been stricter, as Olivier had started to insist that she be? Out they went, little arms flailing in that smooth, devil-may-care way that only children have, miniature dancers with hidden internal choreographers named happiness and simplicity, love. That's what they were, love in movement, her love, Olivier's, all the world's love wrapped up in their little fists, pumping through the air, feet following, drumming the earth for joy. Jonas, their oldest, she'd sent to get an egg from Malou, the old woman in the market who doted on her son as if he were her own, sent him to and from the market to run errands for other clients when she could spare him. He loved the attention, feeling grown, but the boy had turned 11, though he had been a brooding 10 going on 11, a ruminator like his father. He was often distracted as he made his way to and from the market, counting his steps in every direction that he went. Televisions and radios caught his attention, other children from school, or the market women themselves with their téléjol and tall tales. He listened to it all and sometimes reported back. He loved to tell her about the soap opera named Frijolito, or Little Bean, which everyone liked to watch at a house down the road from them, the house of a woman whose name she didn't know, but who had a sullen-looking nephew who had helped her to install a used television in her living room that she turned toward a window so that neighbors could watch too. She didn't watch telenovelas, didn't have any use for them. And what did romance have to do with little beans anyway? That day, she told him to come right back with the egg. She needed it to strengthen a thin soup, was already imagining the filaments of egg, beaten and swirled into the broth, thickening it to a lustrous yellow. Why had he not done as she'd asked that day, come right back with the egg? Why had he dallied and gone to take a peek at the soap opera with the neighborhood children? Why had he entered the house rather than stood outside like the others? Because he was too short, this she knew, so always minced his way through alcoves and door jambs, but still she asked herself the questions over and over again, as if the answers might come back differently, though they never did. Why had he always, like her husband, his father, been so distracted by everything around him? Why couldn't he stay on a straight path? She thought this now, lying on the cot, knowing that if Olivier, her husband, had stayed on a straight path, one that would have brought him greater wealth, maybe better class standing, they might have never met, never made the children who all were gone. Maybe this was why she asked the question, why, if they had never met, which would have been better? The tug, insistent, in the middle of the night, she had turned to the darkness next to her, inches above the ground, and said to it, please, please leave. Then turned her head back against the thin mattress she had been given in the camp by some act of grace, because she'd come there with nothing more than the stitch of clothes on her back, a headdress, some flat-heeled shoes, a ribbon from one of their daughters' heads. Had she come alone? Her children came to define her. Not even Olivier had been able to mark her in that way. They taught her who she was and who she wanted to be, something more than a mother, something of the divine, an intermediary between heaven and earth, the vessel that brought them from over there to here, who'd made flesh out of spirit. They made her believe in holy things for a time, until they all disappeared in a matter of seconds, and the miracles that they were became dust, leaving her above ground only to preach about their passage, a passage she no longer believed in, and for which she refused to testify. I'll stop there.
I was just getting so deep into the book. You stopped and I was like, still going. Wow. Myriam, can I ask you to just continue to the next paragraph on the
Okay.
where it ends up to take the boy away? At this part where
The
she
next
starts-
paragraph.
Right, yes. Can you just continue?
Okay, yes. She turned to the heavy presence settled next to the mattress, pawing at her, and said, I can't see you. Would you please stop? Can't you see I'm tired? There's nothing left for you here. Go back where you came from. Then her face rough against the fabric of the mattress, Olivier gone as well. No warmth next to her. What had happened to Olivier? That she didn't know. But the tadpoles, yes, if she allowed herself to think about it, she knew. Two had been left beneath the neighbor's house. They had meowed like kittens for her, for anyone, for hours, until they stopped making a sound. And when the men from the neighborhood attempting rescues with bare hands moved the broken slabs from above the space that housed them, she knew already that they were unlikely to be breathing, moving, dancing flowers on supple stems. She knew. So she turned away when they brought them out one by one, those limp bodies, not the ones she had birthed, one after the other. The third was still writhing with life, bloody like afterbirth, and men in masks spirited him away with Olivier at his side. Olivier saying he would return. Where had he gone? Olivier, who had not been there when the first two were unearthed, but who had emerged miraculously to take the boy away.
Where do I begin? Firstly, thank you so much. My first question was, did you at any point in time consider narrating the book yourself? Because we know that there's an audiobook available.
You know, I didn't. I wasn't asked, so I didn't offer. And I was told straight away that they wanted a professional voice actor.
Audiobook narrator.
Yeah. Okay. And so
Ella Turen, is it Turen?
Ella Turen. Ella Turen.
Ella Turen. She did a very good job.
Good. Glad you liked it.
You know, and it's not easy when you have narrators who are doing several different characters.
That's true.
Of different genders as well. So you know, she did a very good job of evoking emotion. I did read, there were bits and pieces that I read, that I listened to the audiobook simply because of being, you know, up and about and moving around.
Right.
So, you know, when you're stationary, you're reading the book. But in my car, I found myself listening to the audiobook, and I did enjoy it. It did the book justice. So
good.
Congrats on that as well, on having an audiobook that really lived up to the essence of the book.
I made sure that I suggested Ella because I knew her. She passed away, unfortunately, in December. But she was a practicing actress in Los Angeles and doing more audiobooks, had won an award for an audiobook. And because her first language is French and she's fluent in Creole, I said, you know, please consider Ella. And she was overjoyed to do it and did just an amazing job. So
definitely did.
Yeah. So at least we have a record of some of her work as well.
So yeah, and I'm glad that I don't know if this was the last one that she did.
I think so. She was about to do Ibiza Boys book, I think. And she suddenly passed away. It was just tragic. So
we're so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
But it's always great when persons pass away and there's evidence of greatness left behind, and we can definitely confidently say that she was an excellent. I would love to see her in other works, given how well she executed this audiobook. So let's run right into it. The Fairy Gang will ask you questions, but I have a lot of things that, you know, I really, wow, Trisha, I hope I can bring everything out. So let me just start by saying this was a 5-star read for me, hands down.
Wonderful.
It was a 5-star read for me. I loved how you handled the trauma with delicacy. Caribbean, and I say this from time to time, that reading Caribbean can be heavy.
Yes.
Or socio-historical background is such that we carry trauma in our DNA. We carry it with us. But you were able to represent trauma and to show the different ways that persons envelope that trauma and how they exude that trauma without leaving the reader feeling as if they were, you know, as if bits of them were removed in reading that book. And that's something that a lot of Caribbean readers are still unable to, you know, to do effectively. So thank you very much. Let me just start by saying I see a little tail in your I was wondering how Nakeeta don't see that yet. Can you please introduce us to your
This is
friend?
Maya. This is Maya, who's very unhappy that I'm doing this.
That you're not.
But she said hello.
Hi, Maya.
She's gone
Hi,
already.
Maya. Thank you for joining us
She
tonight.
filed her complaint.
I saw the tail going. Reminded me of the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. So I just had to take a moment there. Okay, so I want to jump right into it. I did see somewhere that you spent many years speaking to survivors. So my first question would be how, and my question is going to come in parts. How did you go about, how did you go about speaking with persons? Because did you at any point in time feel like you were unearthing a pain in those people to extract this information? And then my second question would be the characters. Did you create these characters based on the conversations that you had with, did you create these characters based on persons you spoke to, or were they precursors to the characters that you created?
So the best way I can answer that is first to answer the second question, which is, and the simple answer is no, but none of the characters are based on stories I heard or real people. Except for one caveat, because I remember Trisha, I think, asked the same question. I've been asked the question before, which is that I did meet when I was giving talks and readings from Loneliness of Angels, my last novel. I did meet someone in the Caribbean who just came up to me and said, "Are you from Haiti?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I survived the fall of the Hotel Montana." And then just walked away, didn't tell me a story, told me that it had changed his life, but not anything else. And so what puzzled me about that is that when we heard about the fall of the Hotel Montana, it's like a 4-star hotel in the mountains in Port-au-Prince. It catered mostly to UN and NGOs, foreign NGOs. Okay. And we only heard about wealthier people who had passed away. And it made me think, well, who else was in that hotel? What about the workers? What about people like this person who's telling me that they survived and it had changed their lives? And that's what gave birth to Leopold, that character, but also to Sonia and to Dieudonné, a woman who's a sex worker, a person who's a fixer, and then Leopold, who was a trafficker. And the person I met was not Trinidadian, so there's no connection, but it's just that as an author, you hear something and then you ask yourself questions that then generate an original story. In terms of people telling me their stories, that actually comes from a separate part of my life. It doesn't come into the writing of a novel. I spent years after, from the moment of the earthquake, a couple of weeks after, 3 years into the aftermath, giving a lot of talks as an academic. And this is partly because I was at the time better known for Framing Silence, the book that you mentioned on Haitian women's literature. So I'm often called upon to talk about the condition of Haitian women and children in Haiti. And as soon as the earthquake happened, people wanted to know, what are women saying? And you get this in Anne's section. She mentions these first names, Anne-Marie, Myriam, there's 3 or 4 names that she mentions. Right. All of the heads, all of the leading women leaders of women's movements and women's organizations in Haiti happened to be in Port-au-Prince at that time, and they all died, every single one of them. And so there was this kind of massive, well, what are we going to do next? What's going to happen to the women, without this leadership? And women who established organizations, most of which are still operating, like Info Femmes, SOFA, dealing with women's reproduction, with women in HIV, women who are surviving assault, these kinds of concerns. So I was giving talks, and what would happen, I would give talks that were largely polemical, best practices, this is what's happening, this is what people on the ground are talking about or concerned about. And what would happen is that survivors or people who knew survivors or who knew people who had died in the earthquake would come up to me after the talk and commiserate about the state of Haiti, what was happening. And it took me until 3 years later, when I had been in Trinidad as writer in residence at UE and then met, the painter Leroy Clark, who had at the time been painting a cycle on Haiti, and didn't know what his paintings meant. He asked me, what do the paintings mean? And this, coming from Leroy Clark, who's like a master painter, and here he is grabbing me by the shoulders, tell me what they say. And what I realized is that in the same way that he had been visited by spirits or felt called to comment on the earthquake, that people had been telling me their stories and commiserating with me for all those years, because as a writer, they saw me as someone who would one day write about it. And I was refusing to write about the earthquake in a novel. I was just like, I'm never going to do it. And then after that visit with Leroy and that feeling like, oh, the spirits are calling us to do this work, then I realized that those were in some ways like angels or spirits. The people who had been talking to me were like those visitors saying, one day you'll be writing about this. So you need to be armed. You need to know what you're talking about. And so 3 years in, I had a lot of information as a scholar, as a thinker, but then just also as a human being. And as somebody who comes from Haiti, from Port-au-Prince, and also had to deal with, deaths in my family, deaths of colleagues, and thinking about what was I doing, to help people on the ground and so on.
That's lovely. And I'm glad that you took up the baton. Mm-hmm. and took up your calling. As you mentioned, the spirits calling you. That's something that I thought about as I was reading the book many years ago. Not too long ago, when I was, about 10, not too long ago. Mm-hmm. Many years ago. I was a part of a Broadway musical called Once Upon This Island. And it's actually,
I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's actually set in Haiti, and it looks.
It's by Rosa Guy.
Pardon?
It's by Rosa Guy, right? Rosa Guy.
Yes, yes. So it's set. So it looks at classism, and it's about a young lady who falls, or I can't remember now because it was so long ago. But she falls in love with a young man from the upper class, and she seeks help from the gods. And I was the child version of her. And that was the first time that I became exposed to the whole idea of the spiritual aspects of Haiti. And so reading the book made me really want to find out from you, because you took a very interesting approach and spoke to us about Christianity and the spiritual, connecting the or African roots with the colonialized, because that's really where Christianity came in. Yes. And so I would love to know, I was very curious to know, how did you find yourself, as someone from Haiti, did you how did it feel to be using both elements in the book, throughout the book, with the various characters?
Yeah, it's very Haitian to do, because, we have a saying in Haiti that says something like Haitians are 80% Catholic, but 100% Vodou. And the idea is that even if you say you've never practiced Vodou, and even if you never have, there's so much in the culture that comes out of Vodou, but it's impossible to really separate one from the other. And then Vodou itself is a syncretic religion. So there's a lot that's borrowed from Catholicism. So for example, you could be wearing, like a medallion that represents the Virgin Mary, but the person who's wearing it thinks of them as Erzuli or Yemaya, a different manifestation, but has an African parallel or correlation.
Yeah.
So there's always a going back and forth. And I think for me in the novel, what came up with the characters, and you get this from the very opening with Malou, right, is that you have a sense of ambivalence about organized religion. And you have to imagine too, and this is mentioned in different parts of the novel, that there's a lot of evangelists who come to Haiti from a number of different organizations, mostly from the United States, with this idea that they're going to not only convert Haitians, but save them from themselves. And this goes further than wanting to help people, but the idea that you're going to take them away from these things that are African, that somehow have brought the country down. And a lot of discourse around the earthquake in 2010 was around this, especially in the United States. I'm not sure for elsewhere, but white evangelists saying the earthquake was caused by the belief in voodoo, which is like, it doesn't make any sense. A natural disaster cannot be caused, by a belief. And so what I wanted to do in the novel was to explore the ways in which voodoo, especially when you think about voodoo as a healing force, because people who practice voodoo are really healers. That's the only way to think about it, especially, and this is why you have references to Madame Feuille, people who are root workers, because they are using healing herbs and so forth to sustain people. And this is often in the absence of, medicine that is not easy to access. So I was trying to show that this is a way that different communities in Haiti have found a way to sustain themselves, through time, since the revolution to the present. And one of the choices I made was at the very beginning of the novel is that you have that epigraph from Lekba, opener of ways, the trickster figure, and then at the opening of Malou, you have the invocation to Maîtresse Julie. So as a reader, you're also being initiated into the space, into a kind of sacred space, of following in the belief system and learning about it as you go along. And then I suppose I also wanted to think about the degree to which organized religions have not necessarily provided the kind of relief that those who claim that it would provide this relief have. But Vodou does provide a source of sustenance. And so that was part of the reason I wanted to do that.
And I think that's, and correct me if I'm incorrect, but I think that is what you tried to also present when you gave that reprieve in the end with the bones.
Yes.
So
and going to the waterfall. Yeah, the waterfall, which, if you're more Christian, you think of it as a baptismal scene.
Right.
But there is a pilgrimage that happens every summer. People go to Sodo, and it is meant to cleanse you, And so it kind of came together beautifully. Originally, I didn't have all the women in the waterfall, and then when I was doing my final revisions, I was like, no, we're all going to go together, and this will be like a way of uniting them. And this is also why Sonia comes back up in that moment as a kind of, somebody who could be easily disregarded, but then turns out to be the priestess in a way.
Exactly. And I loved that. I really loved how you empowered all the women. Let me just see if I can stay on track. So as we speak of the women, I did a comparison of What Storm, What Thunder with Augusttown and Pleasantview in looking at the role of the matriarch and how women are used as historical figures, as vessels of wisdom. And so Malou, I loved that she was almost like the thread that tied all of the story together, and using her as the primary narrator, I think, was an excellent move. What made you decide to take that route? And also, with that said, just tell us too who you think your favorite character is, if you have one.
Well, I don't have a favorite character. I think that I can remember the writing process, and that Sarah and Jonas, her son, the 11-year-old, were the quickest to write, which is ironic because they were the most traumatized of the characters, but they just came out of nowhere. Like, they really, like, as Toni Morrison says, sometimes you just are inhabited by a character, like a spiritual possession, and that's how they came through to me. But I think each of the characters had their own special place for me. Like, you can't say which of your children you love the most. You love them for different reasons, or in different ways, I should say, for different skills, you know? And so even Richard, who one of my editors says was deliciously narcissistic, you know, in some ways was like, you know, interesting person to write and deal with. But in terms of the narrative voices, you know, I'd use the 10 voices because I wanted to explore what each of those characters, you know, I wanted to in some way to represent all the people who can no longer be represented. And we're talking about 316,000 now is the last count of people who are thought to have perished. And many of those names we'll never find because whole family groups disappeared. And so I wanted somehow those 10 voices to fill in those blanks, and also some you know, tales of survivorhood. And so it was important to have different perspectives. But Malou, I think, you know, is the person who pops up in every piece and has the first and the last word. And I don't know if you can see this image, I'll hold it up, but in some ways she was inspired by this woman, who is my mother's grandmother, my great-grandmother, who was a market woman. And she's, I think, very much responsible for my mother having become the person she became, and for me to be here talking with you. And so often market women are completely disregarded or thought of as, you know, if they're not completely literate, as not having something to contribute to the society. And they do so much of the work of our societies in the Caribbean. And so I wanted, and, you know, and in Haiti in particular, I don't know so much for other Caribbean islands, but in Haiti, often images of market women are used as a kind of like folklore, you know, to market the island, or to say, oh, come here and enjoy our fruits and so forth. But nobody ever interviews them. Yeah, but they're not talked to. Like when things happen, you don't see a journalist going into the market saying, okay, Malou, you know, what's going to happen to the markets, you know? But I've talked to market women in Jamaica. I've talked to market women in Haiti and Trinidad. They can tell you what's going on globally. They know how what's happening on the other side of the world is affecting their stall, you know, their, you know, business. And so I wanted, and they see everything, and everyone talks to them or around them. They hear all of the, you know, the politics that are happening. And so I wanted the market woman to be valorized in that way. And so that's where that decision came from. That voice of wisdom, also an elder, and also a grandmother, because she's the grandmother to Anne, right? Sorry.
Well, we like that ringtone.
Oh, Michael Jackson going on here. This, my secret is out.
I guess let me just make a note of that for the hot seat. All right. So I have one question already for the hot seat when you come back on April.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So I love that. I really love that, and it's something that stood out to me. I really applaud the authors who, you know, who glorify these women who are true matriarchs, and who are pillars of the society, and we don't glorify them enough, and we don't give them the credit for who they are as nurturers.
That's right.
Of who they are as historians, as you rightfully said. They see everything, hear everything. So when we were introduced to Malou, such a lovable character, you know, it really just, you know, really stepped out. Okay, so let's fast track because I know we're running out of time. Olivier, I thought about and I tend to read and compare other characters. I thought about Akin from Stay With Me. And I thought about the pressures of masculinity. And I know that Olivier is looked at in the early scenes when he disappears. And then you gave him a chapter to give his voice.
Yeah.
And we see the fragility and the vulnerability of him as a male who is expected in that moment of distress to step up as the male, to perform and to represent the highest level of masculinity.
Right.
Now, talk to me a little bit about Olivier's chapter.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have it exactly right. I mean, I try to explore this in all my novels, but this idea of maybe a shift, you know, from toxic masculinity to different forms of masculinity, how we might rethink, you know, Caribbean masculinities. And Olivier is interesting because one of the things he reveals in his chapter is how he was changed by his wife. You know, so he had a particular idea of what it was to be a Haitian man, and everything was going very well. And then he fell in love, you know, in a way that he didn't expect to fall in love. And he allowed that love to change him. But at the same time, he didn't think in the ways, I mean, what I think is interesting about this couple is they have a very different approach to life. And it's this event, this sudden loss of their children and the wounding of a third that really separates them as a couple. You know, they're like a golden couple. And what you find out is that masculinity can't really hold up under that kind of pressure. It's not enough. And the big difference between the two is that, you know, if you think about the backgrounds of both characters, is that Sarah has already endured a great deal of loss. She's lost, she's no longer from the village. She's lost her parents. She's lost her grandmother. She's had to, you know, live with her aunt and cousins who are very kind to her, but they're not her family. She's had to adapt to living in the big city. So when these losses occur, they're tremendous, but she has an elasticity that she didn't know she had, you know? And so in some ways, she has more of this kind of masculine energy to survive. And instead, Olivier has a kind of, he is more easily broken because he's never had to think about loss in the ways that she has had. And some of that is not just masculinity, it's class. He has had more class privilege, so he's never had to think about loss, which is why he never took those extra steps to ensure, you know, a better future for them, because he never thought he'd need to, you know. So I think it's both things. It's masculinity and it's also class privilege.
Right. I love that. I'm gonna ask anybody if they have any questions, because I have 200 questions to ask. Does anybody have any questions? Because if you don't, I'm just gonna pop in one of my other questions. So let me know if anyone has any questions. You can go ahead and put it in the chat. And while you're doing that, because we're gonna lose Myriam in a few minutes. Myriam, I wanted to talk about so many things. I wanted to talk about Didier and you doing what not a lot of authors do, which is showing how hard it is for migrants. The adjusting. Yes. I loved how you showed the comparison between him and the young lady that he connected with, and how they dealt with trauma differently. And then I also loved how you used the music as an element of healing, which is a Caribbean property, you know. Music is something that we use as a soothing balm, as a means of representing ourselves. Didier I loved him. He was such a wholesome character, and just how you unpacked him was really great. And another very important thing that stood out for me, apart from the all that glitters is not gold aspect with Didier, is between Sarah and Jonas, and even the babies, that mother-child relationship, and how that umbilical bond goes across the spheres,
Right.
from the human sphere into the spiritual. That connection remains, which for me, I'm not sure if that's what you were doing, but for me, it was metaphoric and symbolic of how that connection never ends.
Right.
And so her constantly feeling the spirits of the children just felt to me like, okay, Kenzie has a question. I want to just get that in very, very quickly. But I loved that because it really allowed us to appreciate that motherhood.
Yeah. Yes.
You know? Go ahead, Myriam.
No, it's funny because, you know, as you talk about it, and I think only one other interviewer asked me about that, it was actually unconscious. And it's interesting because, you know, as a novelist, there's so many things that you do make decisions about, but there's a number of others you don't. So for example, I did consciously want to weave in music throughout the novel, you know, have different references to music, depending, it's mostly with Didier, but also with Tafia, his younger sister, who he sends music to,
he sends the
right?
thing, the iPod, yeah.
But she also references some songs that I didn't name in the book because I didn't want to get sued. But you know, she references some songs that were really popular at the time, some of which were very problematic. And but that was very conscious. But the motherhood bond, I mean, obviously I was conscious I was doing that with Sarah, but I wasn't as conscious that, you know, Malou, you know, and her son, because she talks also about how she can feel the connection to her.
Exactly,
yeah.
Which is what I felt as well.
Yeah.
She spoke about knowing that he was really gone, feeling
Right.
that in her. Yes.
We call that desune in Creole. Desune is when the umbilical cord unravels, that connection, you know.
Can you spell that, Myriam?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you. And while you're doing that, I'll read desune. Okay. Kenzie is asking, I'm curious why you decided to structure the book how you did, jumping from character to character and hearing each individual story. And she loved how you wove them together, but she's curious to know what made you decide to take that approach in structuring the book in that way.
Yeah, and again, this is something I did it consciously, but it was somewhat unconscious in the sense that when I write a novel, I usually work out the structure first. And in the past, I've had polyvocal novels as well, you know, where I go from one voice to the other. But the only way for me to sustain these voices, and because there was so much trauma involved in the different narrative voices, was to write them through completely. But I had a version earlier where they were more broken up. And my mother who since has passed on, was one of my readers. And she said, you know, Myriam, I really think we need, as a reader, I feel like I want the entire voice. I want to know what happened to this person before I move on to the next. And then I tried it and I thought she's absolutely right, but it would make more sense. And then the difficulty then, or the challenge, was to make sure that the pacing was still there, but you would still want to move on, and that each of the characters would move you to another phase of understanding what had happened during the earthquake and what happened after, which is why you have a kind of loose organization around, you know, what happened before and then being in the camp, so that progressively you find more characters who are in the camps or who are outside of Haiti entirely. So that's how that happened. But I also felt that in the writing, it was easier for me to just stick with the character and know their outcome rather than, as I usually write, which is to go back and forth, you know?
Yeah. I think that really helped because you introduced quite a number of characters and we were able to follow them. I use this word all the time. I speak about fluidity. The fairy gang knows I talk about fluidity all the time. And I read a book last year. I won't mention the name of the book, a book that I had high hopes for. And it felt so disjointed. I was told in my morning conversations with Trisha that the book was actually initially written as a collection of short stories, and then it was turned into a novel. And I felt like it was so disjointed, which I did not have here. And, you know, it's very, very easy for a reader to get lost when you have introduced several
Right.
characters, you know, but everybody also had their individual voice. And
Yeah.
that was amazing. Everyone stood out in their own way, had their own characterization. Like everyone was distinct. And, you know, that's a major thing I think that you did so well in how you brought this book together.
And I'll also add one other thing is that the other reason is that I wanted the reader to experience the kind of breakage that most Haitians felt in the aftermath of the earthquake. So that when you're moving from one character to the other, you would have, especially if you're somebody who did go through the earthquake, and I have heard from survivors who've read it that this was helpful to them, it gave them a place to pause before moving on to the next story. But in terms of like an organizing principle, it's also the idea that this is not smooth. There are still people now recovering from the earthquake, you know, in 2022. And we had a second earthquake in August of 21. And so this idea of breakage, you know, so that you would be breaking between the character, the voices, was also intended to make you have a kind of emotive feeling of that breaking apart.
Sharon is asking quickly, was there a reason you picked 10 different stories?
Thank you for the question, Sharon. There were actually 13, and I wrote 12, and there's 10 left. And that's because of the editorial process. I had my Canadian editor took out one voice. I think that was Loco. And Loco actually has lived on in a French book on Haitian writing, and also will be published in a Canadian journal called Room out of Vancouver.
Getting their own.
My own like a sequel almost. And then the second character who was cut was Paul, and my American editor cut Paul. And then what I did with Paul is that I weaved his story through the other voices. And the idea was because of Douze, the novel being about, you know, the event which happened on January 12th. There would be 12 characters. And then in Vodou, there's always I forgot the word in English, impair, an odd number. You don't do things in even numbers. So that's why I had 13 characters. And the 13 are still there, so you can look for them. But the 12 would include Loco and Paul. And then the two.
So Myriam has given us homework, guys, to look for the 13 characters. Well, we've come to the end of our session. I know you have to go.
I'm so sorry I have to go, but it's been a joy to be here.
We are so happy to have you, and we can't wait to have you back on April 1. Thank you so much for this amazing body of work. Thank you for also showing us the concept of home as a traveling construct. Showing characters taking and yourself as the author taking home with you, and, you know, writing about home and this event and how it changed the lives of so many persons. So Myriam, thank you for being here, guys. Let's give Myriam a very goodbye until we see her again. Wow, guys, that was amazing. I love her so much. Trisha and I, we share a heart for her. We share a heart for her. And I just want to hear your feedback on your thoughts on the book. I hope that our conversation with Myriam also helped to bring further perspective and to clarify anything that, you know, you read and maybe now you have a different feeling about, or if it concretized things that you felt. But I will say this book was a book that had a lot of heart and a lot of soul, and did not leave me with a book hangover at the end of the book. And I really appreciated that, because Caribbean literature can do that to you. You know, it can really leave you with a heavy heart. But the book ends with such hope and such promise that I am so grateful for that. So, because we don't have a lot of time, come to make we talk about book of the month. Okay, so Oh yeah, it's hot in here. Whoa, let me drink.
Can we give like a major shout out to Maya, that beautiful cat? Oh my god.
I was wondering how you didn't see the cat, you know.
Oh my god. She's so pretty.
See the tail here? That was a very beautiful cat. It was a
the energy. Maya is like, hello, please, peasants. You need to pay me money.
Yes. Can I please get my cat food? You're taking up my
energy right there. I love it. And then when her mom holds her up and she's like, what is this?
Yeah,
I don't want to see these people. I don't want to see these people.
I feel like she could definitely be the cat that you send me on a regular basis.
Before we jump into the meat of the matter, which is as usual, you know, I got dragged there with you.
Why is it? Book of the month need to come on here, you know, because the way we talk about book of the month on here.
They're not gonna do it because worse after what was it? Three babes on a book?
Hold on, pause. Kenzie said she has her cat with her. Kenzie, are you gonna turn on
Kenzie?
camera?
I'm gonna spotlight you because we need to see this cat.
Where? Let's see the cat.
Look at just curl. Yeah, he's not. Is it a hare?
Is it a guy or a girl? How do you
It's a little boy. His name is Curry.
Curry.
Yes.
I love it. As in like curry chicken.
You know it.
Curry is like, why don't people come disturb
Hold
us?
on. So Nakeeta, it looks like it's not Damien alone. We have to give Jamaican citizenship. We have to work on Kenzie Jamaican
Kenzie,
citizenship.
come true. I carry a pizza.
Yeah, we're gonna carry it to the passport office. Okay, just let them know they have a cat named Curry. I think that's a good start.
Yeah, listen, I'm not seeing like the set of criteria, but I'm pretty sure she's high up there.
Yeah, I think having a cat named Curry is really up on the list.
And that's way better than naming your cat something like, I don't know, jerk chicken, you know?
Yeah.
I would agree.
Very creative. And then she's also a part of the fairy gang, and that is right way up there as well.
VIP, right?
For Jamaican citizenship. You just go to them and you just say, hi, my name is Kenzie. I have a cat whose name is Curry, and I'm actually a part of the fairy gang. And they're gonna be like, oh, the fairy gang. Oh, yeah, man.
You know what? She can go in like a Madison shirt. Cause she'll actually get one, and they're gonna Why you drink no further water though? You're thirsty.
The shade.
You're very thirsty tonight, Shanique.
Oh, I tell you that my sinus, man.
My sinus are true. Mama drink some water, cause my sinus
I can feel it. Like the drip is like it's sitting on my chest, right? You know, like it's raining right into my chest. So because of that. You know, I have to drink a lot of the water.
I'm sure up where you live cold, so
you know, cause you know I'm high up, so you know it's a bit rough. But okay, thank you, Kenzie, for showing us.
Oh, anytime.
Big up Kenzie, big up Corey.
We'll talk to you some more about working out your Jamaican citizenship.
Okay, perfect.
You know, so we'll set an appointment for another meeting to discuss.
Awesome.
How we're going to put in your application. All right.
We're going to be over there.
We're going to be putting in Damien's application very soon. So maybe we can put in yours along with you.
Can I tell you though, Damien does a really good job with the patois. I mean, one of the things that patois is a language that if you hear it, you'll know exactly what the person is saying. You just need to sound it out. And I am very deliberate because I tend to chip back and forth between English and patois. I will just write my stories that way sometimes. And Damon is like, does this mean X? And I'm like, yes, brother, I'm like that.
And I've also been teaching him some words. So
he's doing well.
Really getting
doing very well.
Getting into it. Guys, as you know, I got an email yesterday, and I'm sure you other book of the month persons would have received it after, as you know, because I would have gotten it first, you know, because I am
you're the queen.
The queen.
That's right.
So, you know, got an email, got some intel. I got a memo, you know, internally that they're now making 7 options for book of the month. I would have much preferred if they added 1 add-on.
I'm not impressed.
Kept the 5 books kept the
Exactly.
options,
Or
and
if
given
they
us the
just
ability.
release that restriction altogether.
Yeah, and let you put as many add-ons that you want.
Right.
I mean, I don't need 2 more options.
Or I mean, even if they say, okay, you can only get 3 books a month, fine. But if you don't want one of the selections, can I just pick
From
anything?
something else? Exactly.
Yeah, just pick anything. I don't want a member fave because look here, member love hypothesis is a member fave. And
To be very honest, a lot of the member faves in Book of the Month are not impressive. And I mean, come on, look at their last year finalists. Yikes.
I mean, it was okay. So full disclosure, y'all know me. I was gonna get Dating Dr. Dill anyway.
We know.
So, but then I'm like, all right, but what the black people, what the brown people, what them then are this? I'm confused.
No way. I don't know. I don't even know what to get from here. I mean, One Italian Summer got a lot of marketing last year. Leading up. So
that's the same author that did In 5 Years, because I know that one have people in a chokehold as well. I haven't read it.
So a lot of people gonna get One Italian Summer. I know that. Dating
without having read the summary, Tell Me Everything and Unsinkable Greta James kind of looks interesting.
Yeah, the Unsinkable Greta James looked very interesting to me, but I need to read up more of it. The Book of Cold Cases, I love cold cases because I love investigatory books. So I want to read up to see what that is about. The Cartographers, I don't know.
Are you one of those people who sit and watch Discover ID and Oxygen?
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Snapped is my jam. It's my whole jam. Snapped.
Yeah, I know.
The first 48 hours.
Always worry when the ladies watch too much Snapped. They're like, what you try to do about this? So what is?
You
trying to plan something. What is going on?
Tell Me Everything is giving me Evelyn Hugo vibes from the cover.
Yeah.
But I don't know what.
Speaking of, have you read, there's this other book that people tend to draw a parallel to Evelyn Hugo. Dava Shastri, I don't remember the first part of it.
The book that just came out the other day?
Yeah, Lily's book club. Lily Singh had it in her book club too.
And I'm doing a giveaway of that book soon.
Yeah, that book.
Before, as we said, giveaway, guys, we're doing Dava Shastri's Last Day. That's the book.
Yes.
The cover, I love the cover. It has a similar vibe, and I'm gonna be doing a giveaway of that book soon. And that Fairy Gang gets extra points. So every Fairy Gang member who enters will get an additional point when I'm doing get an additional entry.
On the spinning wheel.
Yeah, on the spinning wheel. And look how Nakeeta won the last one. My fave.
And she still a trouble you.
Let me
you cannot trouble Shanique for months if you win things.
It's the love, It's how she shows.
I'm not telling a lie though. People, tomorrow make 1 week since Shan draw out on a good Saturday about our warm milk. Why?
Because
let me tell you something. If it's warm milk, you try to put it in some porridge, like a tea, but not with cereal. I
would like you to try it. See, Renee, try it on cheese.
Absolutely. I don't even like when if I forget to put the next box of milk in the fridge and I have to drink the cereal, room temperature milk. No.
You guys are warming up the milk for 1 hour and 1 minute and 30 seconds. You don't need to do that.
I don't even like the room temperature milk with it. That's gross.
Put it in there for 35 seconds and take it out.
And you really are going to ask a nice, clean Miss Chancy about warm milk come April 1?
You're going to ask her?
Do better, man. No, I have a problem.
We're going to ask the good body one too.
I'm going to tell you something.
And
when you forget an earpiece or something,
anyhow him say warm milk in here.
If him say warm milk, boy, I don't know. I'm I still give my priest still, but
Still would, yes. Still will be a good body. As a matter of fact, it will just prove more to us that warm milk is
I don't know about
beneficial.
that. I wouldn't go that
Warm
far.
milk is beneficial to the body
No,
and is a
no.
representation of good bodies.
I wouldn't go that far, but okay. I see what you're doing there. We there's something we forgot to do, and we keep forgetting, and we need to do better, especially as we only have 5 minutes. Good body, Christine.
Yeah, I was wondering. You know, it's funny. I was gonna say, oh, Christine, don't tag us in. Oh, tag me in the post today, Christine. I was looking out for my Shan's Little Adventures tag, and I didn't get any tag today. You didn't make anything today?
Thank you. I said I love tricking up. I did. Well, actually, this was
today. Guys, I'm so sorry. Work has been kicking me in the bam bam.
I didn't do anything today.
No, but the blouse look very pretty. Is that blouse or a dress?
A dress.
I like it.
Oh Lord, yeah, I get the tag for true. Oh my God. No, Christine. No, but want to look on the goodie. No,
come right out.
I like it. Dress. Come out, make me see the dress, please.
The soundtrack off of play. Yes. Wait, we gotta fix the soundtrack up now. All right.
Hot gal, sweet like a honey. X to the back, when I drive in a sunny. Vicky have a secret, Gianni funny. Man come off, I'm in a beg them no money. Till live, any which way me turn. 10 pound ton chat about seeing a dummy.
Son, you need to get Timberly for come and sing it for Christine.
No, I literally said that I'm going to call Timmy and be like, Timberly, every single time I have a bookish Lyme, we play your song, you need to come on and perform it yourself. No, I'm going to send her a message.
No, man, unlike Christine, not gonna know the day nor the hour. You just like go see Timberly just slide up in the and just
we have to go organize that.
We just have a spotlight her and just mash up the place.
I'm gonna send her a text, man. Oh, by the way, Leonie Ross will be on, guys. So all this one Sky Day lovers.
Tell her to bring the Massinos come.
I would really love to see. I would really love to cast that show, that book.
We should.
You know, so we should definitely, it's something that we should discuss. We can discuss it after we have our author chat that night. Who would you cast for the Massinos, Nakeeta?
I mean, he has locks, so I'm gonna have to do some research. Need to be a hot, dark-skinned man with locks,
Yeah, I was
somebody who look nice like Canon.
I don't know who I was trying to think too, and I was like, who would I like? Who?
No, I said him need to look nice like Canon. The man on the front are real. Nice, bad.
Nice and creamy like a bar of chocolate with nuts.
Nice.
Oh my gosh, I just said a bar of chocolate with nuts. But men actually do have nuts. What is what time now? 10:08.
I don't know the date not present up himself yet. The day I call girl like, where you at? Be like Bruno Mars. What you doing?
I don't understand. Where's my date? Hello, date?
Tell me I can leave the door open.
I'm not in a robe, but I do look too good.
Not the robe, the door.
I know, but the Bruno Mars song say,
I have a very visual mind. Could you not?
And a robe, I look too good. Be alone.
Okay.
Well, you know the rest of the words.
My house clean, my pool warm, just shave.
Wow, what a way you know the words.
Girl, do you not see what the song is about? Of course I know it.
No.
Like a newborn, all these things.
Yes.
Why? Wait, man. What a way. No, but I'm gonna have to do a Farragon hot seat one of these days very soon.
I think you should. That would be very, very interesting, I find.
I definitely am considering adding another Friday night because I really want to do Fairy Gang spotlights, and I really want to do something similar to the Fairy Gang as I do with the authors.
Nobody asks about no warm milk though, please.
I'm not asking you guys about any warm milk because I've already asked you guys about warm milk, and you guys have already expressed how you feel about warm milk, and I don't really care how you guys feel about the warm milk anymore. So I'm not asking you guys anything about any warm milk. I'm not going to ask any warm milk questions.
Okay. You feel better? I need to pick up the people who have to send it off for your dates. I don't want nobody come beat well up.
Why, Anna, deal with me, Anna. Hey, Anna, deal with me, Anna. Anna, deal with me on the warm milk, cold milk post, you know.
No, man. You mean worse than Tanya? Come on, no, Tanya didn't come for you.
No, please go back in there. You mean worse than you? And Nakeeta and Tanya?
Tanya did a whole poll.
Hello.
Tanya did a whole poll.
Go back on that reel and look how Annalisa deal with.
No, man, we're going to spotlight. You know, I'm going to screenshot it and post it to my stories.
Say, Nakeeta, you are not behaved, but I was behaved. Behave where?
I think Nakeeta just gets joy from just being a naughty peanut gallery, you know?
Yes, and she and Renee make a very interesting
pair. They do.
Because Renee is my little Shanukums, and Nakeeta is my bad child. Nakeeta is the one that have to beat.
I could have walked past this.
But you know, you love the two of them gone today.
Nakeeta said I love all the thing Renee had a nice one.
Renee, how is your sister saying that about you?
Oh dear. My God, Renee.
Renee, I did not raise you to do that.
Hello. Renee, where you gone? Come back here.
Strong on you there, Renee.
Come back here, Renee. Where you gone? I can find you.
Nakeeta, stop it. And the cats. No, Nakeeta. Yes, no, Nakeeta. We have to end this right now. We have to end this.
I've never told anybody I own a cat.
At our next session, we will look further into
the fishing of the non-cat lady.
How not having a cat has propelled you or pushed you into reading more books, given that you don't have a cat to spend that time with. So that's something that we can discuss in our next session on feelings with Nakeeta. All right, so I thank you very much for coming, and that will be $150 USD, and your invoice will be sent to you. And
tell Jasmine to call me, because that not pay.
Hey, Jasmine has COVID. She's in the ICU right now, and I don't think she's gonna make it.
On a ventilator.
she's on her last breath. I'm very concerned for her, and as such, she's unable to make any purchases on Amazon. So right now, she's literally on her. I mean, I don't know. Send prayers for her, okay?
Prayers up.
Please send prayers for Jasmine, because both two of my closest friends, my best friend and another sister friend, their birthday this weekend, and she can't make it to assist me in the payment of my food. So pray for Jasmine. And for those of you who don't know who Jasmine is, that's my credit card.
That's her credit card.
So send prayers for her. She's on a ventilator at the very present moment. All right. No, right about no. She's not even in the 28th wing. She's right there up at the University Hospital of the West Indies.
Oh, is that Sharpie?
Yeah, she's been in here.
Oh, what about my non-fiction friend?
She came. She missed the interview, but that's okay.
I finally hear Sharpie voice this week. My God of grace, Mr. Girl, you can't be throwing it around the place. all willy-nilly. The poor man them don't stand a chance. Don't stand a chance.
Oh, you did. Yeah, let me tell you.
I did not know how Sharpie sounded. So we started voice noting each other, and then I was like,
does
girl.
not match her face. Let's give some snaps for her. Yes. We love that. We love to see it. We love to see it. And with that said, music, please. Thank you guys so much for coming to another.
Shan, you're gonna hate me with the song I'm about to play, but I don't
like you. And if you ever do it.
Nothing to worry about.
We just wanna be live. Stars in the sky. So
what is your obsession with this song? By the way, that's me singing in the background, guys.
So high. Stars in the sky.
So
bright.
Yeah.
Yes, guys, I did a song recently with a friend of mine, 5 feet. So that's him there that you're hearing. And I sing the chorus. We just wanna be like.
We want the whole chorus. See, that's 4 minutes of chorus. For the chorus, nice.
With me with this chorus because she loves this song so much. And I just knew that's what she was going to play this evening. So we've come to the end of another Friday Night Bookish Lyme, and as usual, it is such a fun time with you guys. Thank you all for coming out. Please spread the word so we can grow our fairy gang community. But I just want to say thank you all for taking the time to read the book. Looking forward to next month's buddy read with you of Yinka, Where Is Your Husband? I know that conversation is going to be torn up, because a lot of things to be discussed in that book. I'm so thankful that Myriam Chancy had the chance to come in and really sit with us and talk in depth about what Storm, What Thunder. So thank you everyone for coming. Love you guys so much and appreciate you all so much. Have a good one, guys. Toodles Noodles. Bye-bye.